The service elevator carried a sharp mix of ammonia and lingering seafood from the day before. Around me, waitstaff moved quickly with trays and floral arrangements, completely unaware that the woman standing quietly in a simple navy A-line dress was the owner of the entire resort. "First time working the rooftop suite," a young man asked kindly, noticing my pause at the doorway. "Something like that," I replied, adjusting the vintage diamond studs I had worn the day we finalized the acquisition of the Pacific Ember Hotel Group, this very resort included, just months ago. "The hallways can be rough," he added in a low voice. "Especially the daughter, she made the florist cry twice today." Ah yes, Charlotte Holloway, my future daughter-in-law. According to every glossy Napa Valley lifestyle magazine, she was engaged to the brilliant young architect Daniel Romero. Though they always seemed to leave out the detail that his mother was the founder of Romero Urban Design and the majority shareholder of this property. Inside the suite, everything was controlled chaos. At the center of it all stood Charlotte, draped in a pale blue gown that probably cost more than my first car. "No, absolutely not," she snapped at the event planner. "The linens are blush, not rose, and these napkins look cheap." "Is there a problem?" I asked gently. She turned sharply, her polished hair swinging behind her. "Who are you?" "You're not in uniform." "I'm Isabel Romero, Daniel's mother." Recognition flickered across her face for a brief second before it hardened into something colder. "Oh," she said slowly. "He mentioned you might arrive early to help." Her eyes scanned my dress dismissively. "Staff should have directed you to the staging area, but it seems they got close enough." I offered a small smile, watching her uncertainty grow. I had assumed I'd be standing beside my son on the welcome line. Just then, Charlotte's mother swept into the room, unmistakable from years of gala appearances and charity events. "Charlotte, darling, guests are arriving, and oh," her voice lifted with practiced elegance, "you must be Daniel's mother." The pause between her words was deliberate. Years ago, it might have stung. Now it was almost amusing. "Mrs. Holloway," I said with a nod, "the venue is beautiful. The redesign truly respects the building's character." "You should thank my architects, I suppose," Vivian Holloway replied with a dismissive wave. The new ownership didn't hold back on spending, though I preferred the previous group. They understood refinement. I held back a smile, remembering the desperation in the former owners' voices when they had tried to maintain control. Never realizing that the quiet Latina architect sitting at the end of the boardroom table was the one buying them out. "Mother," Charlotte interrupted, glancing at me, "should we review the seating arrangements given the situation?" "Of course, darling," Vivian said smoothly. "Mrs. Romero, we've arranged a cozy spot for you in the private dining area with the staff where you'll feel more at ease." "How thoughtful," I replied, glancing briefly at my understated Patek Philippe. "Worth more than their entire floral display." At that moment, Daniel's voice carried across the room. "Mom," he approached, composed and confident in his charcoal suit, the same young man who had found $250,000 waiting for him on his 21st birthday. "Daniel, sweetheart," Charlotte rushed to him, linking her arm with his. "I was just helping your mother find her place in the kitchen." His expression shifted instantly. "Charlotte, we already talked about this." "It's all right," I said calmly. "I'm perfectly comfortable." Vivian let out a soft laugh. "Well, considering your background, we assumed you'd prefer something less formal." Daniel took a step forward, but I met his eyes and gave the smallest shake of my head. He recognized that look, the same one I used in boardrooms before deals turned ruthless. "Perhaps," I said evenly, "we should focus on welcoming the guests." "I believe they're arriving." Right on cue, the elevator chimed. Napa's elite began to fill the room, dressed in polished perfection and effortless pretension. "Mom," Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice, "you don't have to tolerate this, just say the word." I straightened his tie, a small smile forming. "Why ruin the surprise?" He suppressed a grin. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Just a little," I replied, brushing his cheek. "Now go play your part." Charlotte's father, Douglas Holloway, held court near the terrace, entertaining guests with booming laughter and expensive whiskey. Across the room, Vivian guided conversations like a strategist, carefully managing impressions. Charlotte floated through it all like royalty, though her frequent glances toward the kitchen betrayed a flicker of unease. "More champagne, ma'am," the same server from earlier asked softly. I glanced at her name tag. "Thank you, Claire. How long have you been here?" "3 years," she answered carefully, "but everyone's nervous about the new ownership." "There are a lot of rumors. Good ones, I hope," I said with a faint smile. "Better benefits for one and zero tolerance for guests who mistreat staff." Her eyes widened. "How would you?" Before she could finish, Douglas Holloway's voice rang out across the room. "And where is the groom's mother?" "Still hiding in the kitchen." "Surely she's not too shy to join us." The room quieted instantly. Charlotte's expression tightened. Vivian's smile stiffened. I stepped forward into the center of the ballroom, champagne glass in hand. "Not shy, Mr. Holloway," I said smoothly. "Just admiring your daughter's choice of venue." "Ah, there you are," he said, his tone thick with arrogance. "Tell me, what do you think of all this?" "Must be quite different from what you're used to." The tension in the room became almost tangible. Even Daniel went still. "Actually," I said, taking a slow sip, "I find the penthouse quite comfortable, though I believe the East Wing renovation is running behind schedule. Permit delays, if I recall." Douglas blinked, caught off guard. "How would you know that?" "The same way I know about the unresolved health code issues in the kitchen, the unpaid staff overtime, and the bounced deposit on your last reservation." Silence fell instantly. Vivian stepped forward, her voice tight. "Who exactly are you?" I smiled calmly. "Just the help, Mrs. Holloway. Though some know me as Isabel Romero, CEO of Pacific Ember Properties." I let the words settle in. "Or, if you prefer, your landlord." Vivian's glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the marble floor. Charlotte looked like she might collapse. Douglas stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. Pacific Ember is owned by IR Group." I handed my glass to Claire without breaking eye contact. "It is Isabel Romero Group." Daniel stepped forward, barely hiding his amusement. "Should I mention the golf club or the marina?" Charlotte's voice trembled. "You knew." "Of course he knew," I said calmly. "Though I must admit, watching you try to hide his embarrassing mother in the kitchen was enlightening. Especially with your family's membership under review next month." Vivian clutched Douglas's arm tightly. "Douglas, say something." "Yes," I echoed lightly, "say something. Perhaps explain the bounced checks or the offshore accounts keeping things afloat." Guests had gone silent, some discreetly recording the moment. Douglas straightened, trying to regain control. "You can't just walk in here and—" "Actually," I interrupted smoothly, "I can." I paused just long enough for every eye in the room to stay fixed on me. "It's my resort." I turned to Claire, who stood nearby, still clutching her tray. "Claire, please inform the team that all staff will receive double pay for tonight's event, plus bonuses for tolerating difficult guests." Charlotte stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Daniel, please, I didn't know." I swear, Daniel's expression was ice. "Didn't know what that you would have treated my mother with respect if she were rich." "That's worse, Charlotte." "Perhaps," I interrupted, "we should continue this somewhere less public, unless you'd like to debut on tonight's trending reels." The hallways followed me into the private dining room. Ironically, the one they'd tried to relegate me to. Once inside, Douglas crossed his arms. "What do you want? A board seat? A payout?" I let out a quiet laugh. "Mr. Holloway, I hold controlling interest in 3 hotel chains, 2 regional airlines, and yes, that country club you're so fond of. What exactly do you think you can offer me, then why?" Vivan's voice trembled. "Why humiliate us? Because you needed to be reminded that titles don't define worth and neither does wealth." I looked directly at Charlotte, "that how you treat people matters." "I love Daniel," she whispered. "This isn't about money." I raised a brow. "So you'd have proudly introduced his immigrant mother to your friends, even without the net worth? Would you have seated the housekeeper who raised him at the main table?" I asked softly. Posted photos with the woman who worked 3 jobs to send him to college. Charlotte looked away. The silence answering more than words ever could. The irony, Daniel said quietly, is that Mom hasn't cleaned houses in over 20 years. He glanced at me, eyes steady. But if she had, I'd still be proud to be her son. She taught me that real class isn't about money, it's about how you treat people. Douglas sank into a chair, his face a shade lighter than his collar. The club memberships, the hotel accounts, the marina slips, I said calmly. All under review, as is every interaction your family has had with my staff. I take employee dignity very seriously, Mr. Holloway. We can explain, Vivan began quickly. I'm sure you can, I said. You can explain why you wear couture while bouncing vendor checks. Why you pose as philanthropist while demeaning the people who serve you. I check my watch. You have 2 choices. I can announce right now and very publicly the termination of every privilege your family holds at my properties. Or Charlotte whispered, or I continued, you spend the next year proving you can change. Start tonight. Go upstairs and apologize personally to every single team member you've mistreated. Establish a foundation, I added, with your own money, not mine. A real fund for hospitality workers' education, and show me you've learned something besides how badly you misjudged the wrong woman. Daniel stepped forward, and my engagement, Charlotte's face faltered. For the first time, her flawless composure cracked. This, I said gently, is between you and the woman who thought his mother wasn't good enough to greet her guests. Charlotte surprised me. She straightened, eyes glistening but clear. I don't deserve you, either of you, but if you'll let me, I'd like to try to earn your respect. She turned to leave, starting with helping in the kitchen I once looked down on. Charlotte Vivian gasped, no, Mother. Her voice grew steadier. We were wrong and I want to make it right. I studied her face, finally unguarded, sincere. Well then, I said, let's return to the party. I believe you have some apologies to make. As the hallways filed out, Daniel lingered and caught my arm. You knew this would happen. You let them dig their own grave. I adjusted his tie and smiled. Sometimes they need to see the dirt for themselves. Your Charlotte might just bloom after all. If she proves she can change, Daniel said, his voice steady. If she proves it, I echoed with a nod. Now, shall we go enjoy the grand hallway apology tour? What unfolded over the next hour was more satisfying than any hostile takeover I'd ever executed. Charlotte, her designer gown now hidden beneath a borrowed kitchen apron, worked diligently beside the very team she'd once dismissed. Vivian Holloway, still looking shell-shocked, made the rounds with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, offering them with tight smiles to stunned guests, and Douglas, ashen and silent, scribbled out personal checks to cover his bounced payments, each one accompanied by a hefty gratuity and an apology. An elderly woman in diamonds leaned in close to Daniel. Your mother, she whispered, is magnificent. We've all dreamt of someone humbling the hallways. Tonight, she did it. Tomorrow society columns would be a riot. Napa's elite would feast on the spectacle of the region's loudest power couple humbled at their own future in-laws' engagement party. But it was Claire, the young server from earlier, who brought the moment full circle. Esther Romero, she said nervously, approaching me as the music began to fade. We just wanted to say we've worked hundreds of events, served some of the wealthiest people in California, but you're the first who treated us like we mattered. I gently touched her arm. That's because I was you. 25 years ago, I was scrubbing bathrooms between business school lectures. I held her gaze. Never let anyone make you feel small because of how you earn your living. Charlotte approached, her hair slightly frizzed, eyes red, but something had shifted. I've been awful, haven't I? Self-awareness is a solid first step, I said, but what matters is what you do next. I want to set up scholarships, she said quietly, for the staff if you'll help me do it right. I noticed Daniel watching us, less guarded now, on condition. I said you'll spend 1 month working in this hotel, not shadowing, not pretending, working. Early mornings, late nights, angry guests, then we'll talk about funding. She didn't flinch. When do I start? Tomorrow, 5:00 a.m. Wear flats. As she rushed off to inform her stunned parents, Daniel joined me. You're seriously putting her on hotel duty. I'm giving her the best education money can't buy. I watched Vivian fumble with water glasses, trying not to spill. As for her parents, I smiled. They're due for lessons of their own, starting with a full audit of every dollar they've touched in my properties. The music faded, guests trickled out, clutching stories no PR firm could ever bury. Charlotte had swapped her designer heels for a pair of worn kitchen flats borrowed from a staff locker. Her snort's manicured hands were now smudged and unsteady from actual labor. Mrs. Romero, I mean Ms. Romero, she corrected herself as she approached us. I know I don't deserve another chance, she said, voice low but steady. But I want to earn a place in your family, not because of your status or your wealth, but because Daniel deserves someone who understands what matters. I looked at her closely. The mascara was smudged, the composure cracked, but beneath it was something solid, determination. You know, Charlotte, I said slowly. 25 years ago, another polished family told me I wasn't good enough, said I didn't belong in their world. What happened to them, she asked. I bought their company, I replied, renamed it. Built the foundation of my empire with their failure. I smiled faintly, but more importantly, I never became them. Remember that when you're scrubbing floors at 6:00 a.m. As we walked toward the valet, Daniel glanced at me. Did you plan all of this, letting them think you were just part of the staff? Sometimes, I said, the only way to see who someone really is to let them think they have the power. I gave his cheek a light pat. Your Charlotte might surprise us. She's the first hallway to volunteer for hard work, and if she fails, he asked, then she fails, I said. But failing while trying to grow, that's worth more than succeeding with a rotten heart. I glanced back at the hotel, remembering my younger self, changing linens and dreaming bigger. Daniel, sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't showing them what you've built, it's showing them why they were wrong to look down on you at all. He hugged me tightly. You're amazing, Mom. That's what mothers do, I said. We clean the messes, teach the hard lessons, and occasionally buy the hotel laundry room too. I smiled. Now how about dinner? I know a perfect little place. Oh, he asked. I bought it last week. If you saw yourself in my story, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or told you didn't belong, then I invite you to leave a comment below. Tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? And if my story moved you, subscribe to this channel so we can keep shining a light on quiet strength. Remember, success isn't about proving your worth with power, it's about showing grace when others expect revenge. Stand tall, stay kind, and never forget. The ones who try to bury you often forget you were a seed. Let's grow something powerful.